I worked 41 years without ever missing a week. No drama, no shortcuts, no excuses. Just kept my head down and did the damn work. You grow up poor, you learn not to expect much. But you do expect one thing, that when the time comes to retire, you've earned your peace. What I didn't expect was to get robbed by the person sleeping next to me. My name's Walter. I'm 65, retired mechanic from Northwest Ohio. I spent most of my life fixing engines and balancing accounts in my head because calculators always felt like cheating. I owned my house free and clear by the time I turned 58. I've got no kids, no debt, and a pension that took half my spine to earn. I don't drink much, I don't gamble, and I don't screw people over. Turns out not everyone lives by the same code. But before we get into the meat of this story, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you want more real stories that don't sugarcoat a thing. This one's going to get ugly and satisfying. Now let's back up a bit. Her name was Diane. We met in 2017 at a mutual friend's retirement party. She was loud in a way that made you pay attention. Not obnoxious, just big energy. Blonde hair that looked expensive, clothes that said, "I'm done settling," and a laugh that made people lean in. She asked what I did. I told her, grew up fixing things and never figured out how to stop. She smiled and said, "Well, I break things emotionally, so we'd make a good pair." I should have run, but I didn't. We started dating. Weekend trips, long phone calls, nights watching bad TV and holding hands like teenagers. She was 10 years younger than me, never married, no kids, said she worked in client communications at a finance firm, which I eventually realized meant she answered phones and kept coffee pots full. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for a breadwinner. I just wanted someone to split breakfast with and argue about which movies are overrated. In 2019, we got married. Simple backyard ceremony. Just us, a few friends, and a Costco cake. I was 60, she was 50. I didn't put her name on the house, not at first. Not because I didn't trust her, but because that house was the only thing in my life I'd built from nothing. She said she understood. She also asked, a few months later, if I'd help her pay off some old credit cards. Said she'd been through a rough patch after losing her mom. I paid them off, $6,200 total, and told her that was it. No more debts, no more secrets. She smiled and said, "Of course." Fast forward to 2022. I was 1 year into retirement. Diane had started working part-time at a boutique in town. Said she liked having a little pocket money. I didn't ask questions. She made dinner sometimes, took care of the dog, and occasionally hinted that we should take a big vacation. "We've earned it," she said. I wasn't much for beaches, but I started looking at cruises. That's the kind of man I was. I listened. Then one afternoon I logged into my retirement account, and my heart dropped into my damn shoes. It wasn't zero, but it was close enough to make me break out in a sweat. Over $78,000 gone, wiped out in 2 separate transfers over the last 45 days. I double-checked the transaction log. There it was, 2 fax withdrawal requests, each signed Walter T. Briggs. Except one small problem. I don't use the middle initial T. Never have. The signature was a rough imitation. Someone had clearly tried to mimic my handwriting, but it was too neat, too careful, too fake. I didn't say anything that night. I waited until Diane went to sleep. Then I sat at the kitchen table with the printed forms in front of me, just staring. The bank, the account, the routing numbers, the digital fingerprints were all there. The money had been wired to a checking account in both our names, one I didn't remember opening. Turns out she'd added my name to a new account at her bank, used her address and mine, had the paperwork delivered when I was out on a fishing trip with my brother 2 months earlier. The next morning I didn't accuse, I observed. She acted normal. Talked about needing new tires. Asked if I wanted pancakes or eggs. Made a big show of kissing me on the cheek while she walked out the door for her shift. I called the bank the second the door closed. Confirmed the transfers. Confirmed the account. Confirmed her name was primary, mine secondary. I asked the woman on the line, "Can you tell me who initiated the wire?" She paused. "I can't say, sir, but based on the paperwork, it wasn't you." I made copies of everything. Then I made 2 phone calls. First to a lawyer, second to a private investigator. 2 days after I confirmed the transfers, I walked into the living room with a folder in my hand and sat across from Diane. She was flipping through a furniture catalog, dog-earing pages for a dining set she'd mentioned once or twice. Solid wood, hand-carved, expensive. I laid the folder on the coffee table without a word. She looked at it, then at me. "What's that?" I didn't speak. I just opened it slowly and spread the pages out like a dealer laying down a losing hand. Transaction records, wire confirmation slips, a printed screenshot of the new account in our names, her signature, my forged one. Her eyes flicked over each page, then landed on me. "What is this?" "You tell me." A long silence, then a short laugh, forced, nervous. "Walter, if this is about that little transfer, I told you I was going to move some money. I needed to cover. You didn't ask." "Well, it was our money. It was my retirement." I leaned forward, voice still calm, low. "I've worked every day since I was 19. That money was mine. It wasn't for a little transfer, and it sure as hell wasn't for a second checking account I never even knew existed." Her face changed. The warmth drained. Something behind her eyes locked up. "Why are you acting like this?" "Because you stole from me." "I didn't steal anything. I just borrowed it, temporarily." "Jesus, Walter, don't be dramatic." "I filed a fraud report." Now that got her attention. Her mouth opened, then closed. She sat back against the couch cushion like I'd slapped her. "You what?" "I filed it with my retirement fund, with the bank. I've got a lawyer. I've got a PI. And I've got copies of everything." "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "Am I?" That night she didn't come to bed. The next morning I checked our joint credit card account. She'd used it to book a hotel room across town, and then she withdrew $2,000 in cash. The private investigator, old buddy of mine named Mick, called the next day. "She's been meeting with a guy every Thursday for the last 3 months, sometimes Tuesdays too, same place, back booth at a steakhouse near the mall. Name's Kenny Monroe, divorced twice, drives a Lexus, real estate kind of. He's got some unpaid tax liens though, and a habit of buying things in cash." I let out a long breath. "You sure?" "Walter," Mick said, "I've got pictures." Didn't confront her about Kenny, not yet. I wanted to know how deep the hole went. What was she planning? Where had the money gone? What did she think would happen that I'd never check? That I'd just fade into retirement while she bled me dry? I searched the house, every ended drawer, every shelf, her office, her closet. In a manila envelope behind the bathroom sink, taped to the back wall of the cabinet like some amateur spy trick, I found a folder labeled Transition Plan. Inside, a printed listing sheet for my house, a handwritten budget for life post-Walter, business cards for a lawyer I didn't recognize, and a real estate agent named Lauren M. Peters. I stared at that envelope for a long time, didn't move, didn't breathe, just sat on the edge of the tub and tried to feel something other than white-hot rage. She was going to sell my house. My name was the only one on the deed, had been since I bought it. But she'd listed it anyway. She forged my signature again, sloppy this time, arrogant. And now, I realized, Kenny Monroe wasn't just a side fling. He was in on it. I took the folder to my lawyer, Alex, who didn't say much at first, just nodded as I laid out the documents like evidence at a trial. "This is serious," he said finally. "I know. She's committing felony-level fraud, Walter. Multiple counts, forged documents, wire fraud, bank fraud, possibly conspiracy if this Kenny guy is tied to it. I want to ruin her." Alex looked up. "Then we do this the right way." By the following week, we had frozen a checking account she'd created and started the process of placing a hold on the house title. Any sale attempt would now flag as under legal dispute. I also gave Mick the green light to follow Kenny. Within days, he had what we needed. Kenny had been flipping homes with cash buyers, sales well below market value, shady paperwork, and always connected to women recently separated or divorced. It was a pattern, a system, and Diane was next in line. The final straw came 2 Fridays later. I came home to find a manila envelope on the kitchen table. Divorce papers. No note, no explanation, just the paperwork. I flipped to the proposed settlement section. She wanted half my pension, a monthly spousal support payment, and the right to retain residency in the home during the sale process. She was trying to beat me to the punch, take the money, force me out, and walk away clean. Except she forgot something. I don't start fights, but I damn sure finish them. I signed the papers with a bright red Sharpie and wrote across the top, "We'll let the court decide." Then I mailed them back, certified, return receipt requested. After I sent the divorce papers back, Diane stopped pretending. She didn't try to talk, didn't make excuses, didn't even fake cry. She just went cold. Started moving things into boxes, claimed she was staying with a friend for clarity. I didn't ask which friend. I already knew it wasn't a friend. It was Kenny. She left on a Tuesday. I stood in the driveway and watched her taillights vanish down the road. She didn't wave. I didn't flinch. I walked inside, locked the front door, and started making calls. First to Alex, my lawyer. We filed for an emergency injunction on the house. Thanks to the forged signature on the listing paperwork, the one I found taped behind the bathroom sink, we had legal cause to freeze any real estate transactions involving the property. The court approved it 2 days later. No sale, no transfer, no refinancing. Not without my signature, not anymore. Next I called Mick, my private investigator. I want to go public, I said. You sure? Yeah, I want people to know exactly who she is, and I want to make it look like it's falling apart, like I'm slipping up. Give her just enough rope. Mick laughed. Rope to what? To hang herself with. We started small. Mick created an anonymous burner account and emailed Kenny's financial history, the liens, the property flips, the court dates, to Diane's employer. She didn't know we knew where she was working now, a luxury home staging company run by a very image-conscious woman named Maureen Delacroix. We also sent the info to a couple of real estate agents she'd been cozying up to online. Mick attached a fake tip from a concerned community member that Diane had been seen meeting with clients and discussing off-book deals on behalf of her new boyfriend despite not being licensed. 2 days later, Diane was let go for redundancy. She posted something vague and passive-aggressive on Facebook. Some people can't handle a strong woman who knows her worth. On to better things. I didn't comment, but I took a screenshot. Meanwhile, we were building the case. Mick got Kenny on camera at a restaurant. Same booth, same place, whispering with another woman who wasn't Diane. This new woman was younger, nervous. Flipping through a folder Mick later zoomed in on, property paperwork, a title document, same scam, new mark. We sent that footage straight to Agent Holloway at the Ohio Department of Real Estate Fraud, someone Alex had quietly looped in as soon as we discovered the pattern. Turns out Kenny had been under light investigation already. Nothing formal, but suspicion was growing. Our footage gave them what they needed to open a proper file. Then came the public part. I took a risk. I wrote an open letter. Not a rant, not a sob story, just a simple 3-paragraph post on my personal Facebook page. I said my wife of 4 years had emptied my retirement, forged my signature, attempted to sell my house without my knowledge, and was now under investigation. I didn't use her full name. I didn't have to. People knew. They started connecting dots. That post got shared over 1,200 times in 2 days. I got messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered support. Others had their own Diane stories. Turns out she'd bounced from job to job for years, always leaving quietly, always just before someone reported something missing. She was a ghost in plain sight. Until now. The final move came the next week. Mick had discovered that Diane and Kenny had tried to list my house through a friend of Kenny's, a private buyer looking for cheap flips. The paperwork had already been started before I froze the deed. They were going to sell it behind my back. Mick suggested we stage a meeting. We had the footage, the statements, the paper trail. All we needed now was a reaction. So we baited the trap. Diane texted me on a Thursday night, first time in weeks. Can we meet? I think we need to talk about all this. I don't want things to get uglier than they already are. I waited a few hours, then replied, Fine, coffee shop by the hardware store, noon, bring your copies. She showed up wearing a trench coat and sunglasses like she was auditioning for Basic Instinct. Sat down across from me, all posture and poise. I just want to resolve this peacefully, she said. Sure, I said, you first. I don't know what you've been told, Walter, but I didn't steal from you. I moved some money, yes, but it was for us. You weren't listening. You were stuck in the past. And the house? I asked. I never planned to sell the house without you. Kenny was just helping me explore options. It was never serious. I smiled, reached into my folder, laid down a printed still image from the security camera footage. Kenny in my living room, walking a buyer through the hallway, saying, We'll list it at $340, take $295, quick close. Her face froze. What is this? She whispered. Discovery. She pushed her chair back. I have nothing else to say without a lawyer. I nodded. Good. I hope they're better at signing your name than you are. The next morning, Alex filed the fraud complaint officially with the county. The forged real estate paperwork, the fake bank account, the retirement account documents, everything. It wasn't just a civil case now, it was criminal. I thought she'd fight. I thought she'd rage. But she disappeared, deleted her social media, quit her phone plan. Even Kenny's place looked empty when Mick drove past. We later found out they'd gone to Tennessee, tried to open a short-term rental business, Diane under a maiden name, Kenny under an LLC that didn't exist 2 months earlier. Didn't matter. We handed everything to the state, let them chase the dust. It took about 6 weeks for the case to reach the county prosecutor, another 6 for the state to get involved. Diane didn't return to Ohio, not once, not even to face the charges. She and Kenny had officially registered a short-term rental business in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, under a new LLC, fake address, no tax ID. That made it a federal issue, fraud crossing state lines. Alex called me on a Thursday afternoon with the update. They're issuing warrants for both of them. The feds are in now. Wire fraud, identity theft, attempted sale of property without ownership rights. Will I get the money back, I asked. Some of it, retirement funds already restoring about 80% since the withdrawals were flagged early. As for the rest, it depends on what's recoverable. I nodded, not angry, just tired. Alex continued. They're not even trying to fight it. Diane's attorney tried to float a plea, restitution, probation, no jail. And what did the DA say? He laughed. A month later, Kenny was arrested at a gas station outside Nashville. Diane was picked up at the rental house, barefoot and red-eyed, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her mugshot showed up on a few local news sites, just a blip, a footnote in a bigger case. The local paper in our town ran a story titled, "Retired Mechanic Exposes Real Estate Fraud Ring." I didn't read the comments. I didn't have to. I'd said what needed to be said. Diane ended up taking a plea deal, 3 years probation, restitution of $47,000, banned from holding financial or property power of attorney for 10 years. She also signed a sworn statement admitting to the forgery and misuse of funds, which legally barred her from touching my pension or any shared asset ever again. That alone was worth more than the check. Kenny got 4 years in federal prison for wire fraud, conspiracy, and prior offenses tied to previous real estate scams. Turns out Diane wasn't his first partner, but I was the first one who didn't just walk away. I finalized the divorce in silence, no lawyers, no courtroom, just paperwork signed and notarized. She didn't contest a thing, didn't even try to write a note, just sent it back in a manila envelope with a blank return address. Good. I didn't need closure. I needed peace. I sold the house 6 months later, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stand the sight of it anymore. The hallway where I first kissed her, the kitchen where she smiled while planning to take me for everything, the bedroom where she faked a life beside me. Too much betrayal in those walls. I moved 2 hours south, bought a small cabin on 5 acres near a fishing lake, 1 bedroom, no neighbors, no surprises, just me, a mutt I adopted from the shelter named Jasper. I fixed up the porch myself, painted the walls soft gray, hung an old clock that ticks louder than the silence. Sometimes I go 2 days without speaking a word, and it's the best kind of quiet I've ever known. 3 months ago I got a letter, not from Diane, from someone else, a woman in Kentucky. Said she'd read about the case in a local article. Said her sister had dated Kenny once, years ago, and lost her house in the same kind of scam. Thought she was alone. Thought she was just dumb. Then she saw my name. "You don't know me, Mr. Briggs," she wrote, "but you gave me something I didn't know I needed. Proof that it wasn't just me, that it wasn't my fault. You didn't let him get away with it. Thank you." I pinned that letter to the fridge with a magnet that says, "Keep swinging." Sometimes I still get angry, not because she took the money, but because she took the part of me that trusted too easily, that believed in porch lights and second chances, that believed in someone just because they smiled and said the right words. But that part of me is gone now, replaced by something better. Resolve. Last I heard, Diane was back in Tennessee, working part-time at a dog grooming place under a maiden name. No social media, no new friends, just a trail of burned bridges behind her. Good. Let her rebuild. The way she tried to tear me down, alone, broke, and exposed. Kenny's still in prison. I don't think about him much, just hope the walls are cold. As for me, I fish, I read, I fix things when they break. I don't owe anyone anything and nobody owes me. Sometimes I get letters, sometimes I don't, but I sleep well. Because when someone takes what you earned, what you bled for, you don't just take it back. You make damn sure they never forget who they stole from. And you never ever let them rewrite the ending. Not on your story, not on your name.